Welcome to KoshienCast, the podcast that can't help but make an episode even when no anime is airing.
Uh,
My name is Matt, and joining me today is a very special guest, Matt.
Hello.
So, like I mentioned in the intro, this is an off week between the fall and winter anime seasons. So today we're mostly just going to be doing a wrap up on some of the shows that are going to be continuing into the new season, as well as previewing a couple shows that will be new to us in the upcoming season. But first off, I just wanted to take a little bit of time and look back on this fall season.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. Obviously, this is our first full season doing a podcast, right? So
Yeah.
uh, we've definitely learned a lot. We started recording in September. It's now January, and we've done it every week since, and sometimes multiple times a week here in December when we started doing the reviews. And so, first and foremost, I just wanted to thank anybody that's been tuning in.
Yeah,
It's
thanks for putting up for it with us.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, we are still very much learning the ropes. We only slightly know what we're doing, and so we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your interest. Whether you randomly somehow found us from episode 0, or if you started listening a little more recently when we did the end of the season reviews, we appreciate having you here. It's been really encouraging seeing the fact that some people have checked out our end of season reviews and then gone back and downloaded some of our old episodes to get caught up. So that's really exciting for us. It makes us feel like we're connecting and we're communicating in a way that people are finding interesting, which is
Yeah,
all we could ask for.
and it's more than we ever really thought either.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, my expectation coming into doing this was that it would be a fun project to do with you, because we talk about sports anime all the time anyway, and we figured, it might be fun to record them and see if anybody would listen. And the response has been a lot more significant than either of us expected.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun, and yeah, we've had downloads in like 8 or 9 different countries, which is crazy to me.
Yeah,
Um,
right?
and most people are in the United States where we are listening, but still spread out. And there was a lot of interest around our Yuri on Ice series review, which is
Of
to be
course.
expected, because it was the most popular show, but there's been subsequent interest in other stuff, and so it's been encouraging, and it's been a fun. I look forward to doing this every week with you, Matt.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty much the highlight of my week.
Yeah. The so I mean it's such a random concept, this podcast. When you look at it, it's like a niche within a niche, right? I mean, because even anime in itself is a pretty niche hobby, but then
Right.
specifically sports anime, which are chronically one of the least popular genres within the anime community, especially in the West. And
Yeah.
then within that, to watch all of them regardless of quality,
Right.
meaning I don't know who out there cares about both Yuri on Ice and Days and Tiger Mask W, you know.
Right. The
um
three fan bases that don't really have a lot of interaction.
exactly, yeah. So it's a weird project, but anyone who's interested in seeing us do, if there's a sports anime, we'll talk about it week to week, and we've stuck to that. And honestly, I don't feel drained by it. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my big fear. Is I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. We're gonna have to force ourselves to do this. But mostly, it's been something I've looked forward to doing.
Yeah, it's been fun checking out a lot of these shows that I probably wouldn't have watched otherwise, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, exactly. And some of them have been really pleasant surprises. But yeah, is there anything you think you've learned in the last few months doing this podcast?
It's helped me learn to talk a little better. I feel a little bit more talking off the cuff, which I know I just stuttered during that, but you get my point.
Yeah.
I've learned kind of where to find my focus,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I've also learned about how to make thumbnails.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I appreciate a lot is that you've done. I mean, these episodes, as anyone who listens can tell, are very lightly edited.
Right.
Um, we it's pretty much a reproduction of the conversation unless we have a total mix-up and we need to pull something out.
Yeah.
Um, but what editing we have had to do, you've done, which I really appreciate. And also you've put together the YouTube uploads because not everyone listens to this on a podcast app. You know, plenty of
Right.
people listen on YouTube too, and you've done that, and you've also been creative with it and made those videos interesting so that if you are glancing at the video itself, there's still some engagement and some inside
A
jokes.
little bit, not
Yeah,
much, but
yeah,
I try and
exactly.
throw it in where I can if I
Yeah,
feel like it.
right. So that's I've really appreciated you doing that, and I've appreciated this being something that we can talk about and look forward to every week.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So one thing I just want to say. So any one listening out there, number one, number two, and number three, we appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. We are amazed with the level of interest. Because our assumption was the level of interest would be zero. So everyone that's listened has been like absolutely exciting to us. We've really cherished that, and it's been something that we've talked about a lot
Pretty
recently.
much message each other every day about it.
Well, yeah, just about
I
like
think at
how
this
how the
point.
how the show is doing. It's mostly been in the last few weeks that um, things got a little more interesting with that. So we appreciate your interest. We're hoping to maintain our consistency so that we can maintain that level of interest. But at the end of the day, we're doing this as a fun project. So if it and as long as it's fun
Right.
for me to do, as long as it's fun for Matt to do, we're gonna keep doing it. That's number one. But it is encouraging that we're not the only ones who think it's fun. That's basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so just want to remind again, if anybody does have any questions or comments, we are happy to receive those. Like we say it in the credits every time, but I just want to reiterate. We'd be happy to do some questions on air or anything like that if it comes up. But so you can do that through our email, which is KoshienCast@gmail.com. You can also contact us through our Facebook, which is KoshienCast, and our Twitter, which is KoshienCast. And feel free to follow us on YouTube if you want to watch that way. And we are pretty good about responding to comments on the YouTube videos as well.
Most of the time, yes.
Exactly. And the last thing is, if you have enjoyed this first season we've done, please feel free to leave a review on iTunes. It really does help get the podcast out there. And if you leave a written review with a full rating, a 5-star rating, we'll read it on air. I'm just gonna say that right now. As long as you don't say anything inappropriate, we'll censor it creatively. But anything you say in a 5-star review, I'll read it on air. So if
Right.
anyone wants to do that, that would be helpful and encouraging, and then you can be part of KoshienCast history just like that. Um, so as far as moving forward with the show, we're going into the winter season. So as we won't do our first full normal weekly episode until the 16th because that's when we'll have had at least one episode of each new series. We'll probably have two episodes of some of them, sort of like
Right.
we did in the fall season. So like I said, we'll have our first regular episode on January 16th, and then next week we'll look to have another series review. So obviously we did series reviews for everything that concluded in the past season. So this time we're going to go a little farther back and pick out another sports series from 2016 that we didn't cover because it aired before we started doing this show.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. And I'm just gonna tease it. You can decide for yourselves which show you think it's gonna be. Um, but it should be a fun little conversation we have for next week. Anyway, that's about all I had for announcements. Again, just thanks for everyone who made this project even more enjoyable for us. I mean, we would have had fun doing it if we were just doing
Yeah.
it for ourselves, but it's very encouraging to see that other people are interested too. So anyway, we'd love to hear from you. Know who you are. Know what you like. Know what we can improve.
Of course.
Anything else, Matt?
I think that will do it. We just hope you all aren't just tuning in for Yuri on Ice.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. Because yeah. So anyway, I wanted to briefly wrap up a quick conversation on a couple of the shows from the fall that are going to be continuing into the winter season. Obviously, we're not doing a full review on them until they actually end. Um, but I would like to just bring up, what we liked and what we're looking forward to in the next season.
Of course.
So the first one, and probably the biggest one for us, is March Comes In Like a Lion. Um, Again, this was sort of a borderline sports anime anyway. We have a very broad definition of sports anime, so
Right.
it has definitely held up its end of the bargain in that regard. It's the level to which shogi is inherent to the show is quite,
Inconsequential.
yeah, it's consequential.
Right.
It's probably more consequential than cycling to long riders, if we're being honest.
Right.
So anyway, my general impression has been positive. I think it
Right.
came away strong. It had, for me, a strong, very artistically styled first episode, and then a sort of a meandering few episodes after that, and we were
Right.
starting to doubt whether it knew where it was going or not. But I believe in episode 5, when they had sort of a deep dive on Ray's background, that's where it really started to find its footing, and each episode just seemed a little more consequential after that.
Right. And like it was kind of interesting because I had kind of the reverse opinion coming into the show because I didn't really like that first episode very much. But as the series was going on, I was starting to latch more and more onto it. And I think it was around episode 5 where we both sort of met at the same place, where we were
Yeah.
both finally on board with it together.
Yep.
Uh, and I think that was largely because, well, first of all, that was around the time when shogi started to become a bit more apparent as being a main driving force of the show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was around the time where it started to become, okay, this is a story about a shogi player. This isn't about a story about some high school kid who happens to play shogi.
Right.
This is the story of somebody who was thrust into this world that he wasn't sure if he wanted to be a part of or not. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the series is about his development and his acceptance of becoming this player, and that's what's been really interesting for me about this series.
Yeah, I agree. Um,
Uh,
well, do you think there was any, like, what themes do you think that it's trying to develop, and how successful do you think it's been?
I think what it's largely trying to do, it almost feels like don't take this as too literal of what I'm of a statement. I think it almost feels a bit like a superhero story almost, and I know that sounds weird. Yeah, just give me a moment here. Uh, the way there's kind of a split between Ray trying to find a personal life and his shogi life, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can kind of see the parallel there, like in something like, say, Spider-Man, a lot of the appeal of something like Spider-Man is a lot about, he's got these amazing superpowers. He's kind of like this power fantasy, but when it comes right down to it, like once you start delving more into his personal life, he actually lives a very normal life, and a lot of the story of Spider-Man is trying to balance his two lives.
Mm.
And that's what March Comes In Like a Lion feels like, except it's a more grounded story because this is about somebody who's so incredible at shogi who may not have even really wanted to do it, but had to thrust himself into it just to find some form of like protection in his life because that was the only way he could even he felt like he was being justified by the playing of shogi. But now, as the series has been going on, he's been discovering, maybe there's a little bit more to his life than just shogi. He's finding more of a support unit in the sisters,
Hmm.
and it's a lot. And a lot of the series is trying to balance out his opinion, his growth as a shogi player, while also trying to maintain his relationship, or discovering that his relationship with these girls is more important than he originally had thought.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of what you said resonates with a question of individualism versus community mindedness.
Right.
And he has different examples in his life with other pro shogi players, with other friends and family, where he's trying to choose basically how he's going to live his life. Whether he's going to be someone who focuses strictly on shogi, strictly on winning, strictly on being the best, because that's very much a
Right.
part of him, or whether he prioritizes his relationships with his friends, with these sisters that have taken him in, with like Nikaido, the friend that he didn't particularly want to have, you know, whether that can become as much of a priority for him as winning at shogi is, and that'll sort of determine a lot of how he deals with his history of depression, which it tries to show that a lot of the depression came out as a result of him being super isolated.
Right.
So, despite the fact that he may or may not know that isolating himself is unhealthy, it's still his natural way of being, and he still tends towards separating himself from people, even if it hasn't been a joyful experience, because he knows it's better for his shogi. And some part of him, even though he knows it's unhealthy, just wants to be good at shogi.
Right.
So that's been kind of an interesting
It's
journey,
been a
and he's
yeah.
been back and forth on.
Yeah, it's been a it's it's a real solid story. I know that sounds like an odd thing to say, but this really feels like there's a like even though that there's not like a grand narrative, I feel like this is a slice of I was actually talking about this with my sister the other day about how a lot of slice of life series there's not really like they tend to lean more towards comedy and romance, and I feel like March Comes In Like a Lion is a real great example of how you do a slice of life series as a drama.
Hmm.
Uh, just based on the way because the stakes are not really that high in the series.
Oh yeah, no.
Like it's just kind of his day-to-day life, and a lot of the stakes just come down to, is he still going to remain friends with these people? Is he going to learn a new lesson? Like there's not there's not a whole lot to win or lose here,
Mm-hmm.
but its portrayal and the way it kind of moves through the stories has been a real it's been a real interesting experience. It hasn't always been fun, but it's been really interesting.
I agree. And you brought up sort of a broader point before we move on that I just want to address, which is March Comes In Like a Lion and many other shows not, being a slice of life anime, right?
Right.
One of the common critiques we see when people, ourselves or others, try to address a lot of these shows as sports anime and trying to say, oh, why is this show effective or ineffective as a sports anime? A lot of fans will react instinctively and say, oh, it isn't a sports anime, it's slice of life, or
Right.
it's some other genre and that just uses sports as a motif. What's your reaction to that when you see that criticism leveled?
And I hate to say it, but in a lot of I hate to say it, but there's a a lot of those series that we tend to criticize. We don't particularly like them as its intended genre either.
Right. Yeah, just
Like,
because you could say it's a slice of life anime, that doesn't make it a good slice of life anime.
right, and
It's
it's
also
like
not a good
March comes
sports
in like a
anime.
it's like March Comes In Like a Lion. I think it's I think it's a pretty interesting slice of life series, and I think it uses the sport as a pretty pivotal point of its story.
Hmm.
And I don't, and it's not one of those things. It's like when I hear that, it's like, I don't really put much stock into it, to be honest, just based on the genre.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly because it seems a little trite for me to insist on a show being one thing. You
Right.
know, all of these shows are sports anime because they're anime about sports. It's a super reductive reasoning. Um, but that's why they're sports anime. They can also tell other kinds of stories. You know,
Right.
a more simple sports story would be something like Haikyuu, where it's mostly about people actively playing a sport. And that's
Right.
most of the, but it's also a character drama because it can't just be about sports. Because if any of these shows were just about sports, there'd be no point in watching them. That's why
Right.
sports exist. Like no one would spend the time to animate anything when you can just watch a baseball game. You don't watch
Yeah.
these because you need to see sports. It's because you need to see these stories told, in these unique kind of ways using these settings that we all understand through sports. Um, so that's it's not something that I'm too hung up on. Maybe I'm a little hung up on it, apparently.
I mean, you did bring up the subject.
Exactly, but so I just wanted to put my thoughts out there, see what you felt. But so another continuing show that we're looking forward to is All Out. What did you think of the first half of All Out?
So we've kind of discussed this a little bit. Far and away the most improved.
Yeah.
Um, it it has a real bad beginning. Not even so much like terrible. It's very uninteresting. It feels like it could have been any other sports series.
Yep.
It felt like it was just going through a lot of the motions, and then it kind of pulled itself together.
Mm-hmm.
It got a lot more interesting after that pretty boring first 3-4 episodes.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm really glad that I'm really happy about that too because we talked a little bit about this on the show too. I wanted to like All Out, I really did because I wanted there to be a good rugby series,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad it's starting to take the shape that I wanted it to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were both kind of down on the first few episodes, and it really pulled itself together. I'm trying to decide on. I don't know if we necessarily agree on when the show turned.
Yeah,
For me, it was the episode where they introduced the coach. That was where I thought it,
yeah.
it really elevated. You reacted to it positively a couple episodes after that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll acknowledge that the coach was the turning point, but for you it was a little bit more immediate, whereas for me it was a little it took a little bit to finally grow on me.
yeah, it hadn't quite won your trust yet.
Yeah,
um,
basically.
right. I think one of the interesting things about the show is that it treats its students as being more human than a lot of sports anime do.
Right.
And this is something we've talked
Yeah,
about
because
on the show.
they actually like act like teenagers with one another. These aren't people who are, necessarily like there's this sort of recurring theme in a lot of sports series where you have these senior students who are very much more experienced. They want to, they kind of look after their juniors.
Hmm.
And, it feels a little bit too much that they act like professional athletes when they're kids.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to see a series where they actually act like teenagers because they give each other crap all the time. They kind of like it's not even like gentle teasing. They get in each other's heads and they attack one another.
Well, yeah, because they're like not friends, and they're all actually competing to
Right.
be on the team. Some of them have personality issues, like Abumi. Sekizan is an imposing figure, but he doesn't actually really know what he's doing. In terms
Right.
of leading a team, he's sort of figuring it out and basing it largely on his own individual strength, but not really sure how to inspire a group or how to train them in rugby. So it's nice to see that aspect, and I have no reason to believe that won't continue. Um, I don't think it's aiming for anything revolutionary. I think it's just
No.
trying to be a human, well-told sports story, which I think is a perfectly excellent ambition, and I think it's
Right.
holding up so far.
And I mean, let's face it, we both wanted another shonen battle sports series like that because let's face it, that's what we always look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the more traditional style sports series, but done with a little nuance. So
Yeah.
it's really all I could ask for.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
One other thing I would like to point out, one of the other major turning points for me, at least personally, and I don't think I've ever actually talked about this on the show, is that I kind of appreciate now that the series has finally decided to focus on a main character now, because it feels like these past few episodes have actually focused on Gion,
Yeah.
and I have appreciated that a lot, because now we actually have a central figure that we can actually like watch and learn the sport with, which was kind of a problem I was having at the beginning as well. Was it was trying to throw too many characters in at once. It was trying to establish all these different themes while also being a very standard sports series that wasn't really doing much with itself. And like I appreciate the fact that now we actually have a main character that we can sort of relate to a little bit more. Like Gion has really grown on me after these past few episodes.
No, I agree. I mean, the way that the first half ended really set itself up well. I think the last probably 3 episodes or so were the best of the series so
Yeah,
far.
definitely.
So on a slightly less optimistic note, we're also going to see the continuation of Tiger Mask W. I
Yep.
think it's very unclear exactly what's happening with this show. Whether I guess I mean we'll see in the next little bit, but there haven't been any announcements about it. I mean, it's missed some weeks. They had a preview for the upcoming episode, but there's no clarity on exactly how it's going. It's supposed to go on for 2 more seasons. I'm not really sure how, when it's barely made it to the end of one. But anyway, this show was by and large a disappointment.
Yeah.
Um, because I was hoping going into it that it was going to be campy fun that was
Yeah.
self-aware. Um,
Or
and
even not self-aware. I would have been fine if it wasn't self-aware about it.
yeah, what it's turned out to be is campy, mild, occasional entertainment at its own expense.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't felt like this was fun for a while.
You know, it's funny because I think we have watched worse shows this season, and we'll talk a little bit more about that
Yeah.
later on. But Tiger Mask was actually always the one I sort of ended up dreading to watch because there was nothing interesting about most episodes.
Yeah.
Uh,
There was
even
barely any
even in its
content.
worst moments, it was just very boring. Except for that one episode, the Idol episode was amazing to discuss with you.
Well, yeah, but again, that wasn't good on its own merits. It was just like the only good episode on its own merits that I could actually recommend anyone to watch was the Red Death Mask
Yeah.
episode. And we brought it up again and again. I hope it's gonna be like that again. I hope it's gonna be like that again. And it clearly cannot. Even if they wanted to, it can't go back to that level of artistic production.
Right.
Um, so yeah, there were some funny episodes. I like the extended breakdown of Gorilla Jeet Singh.
Yeah.
But
I
all of the fun parts of this show following episode 4 have been criticisms of how poorly the show has handled itself.
Right. And I mean that's really the problem. It's like we could even get by this if like the fights were had any sort of level of intensity to them.
Hmm.
I'm blown away that the entire central story here is supposed to be about this dynamic between Tiger Mask and Tiger the Dark. And they just sort of they didn't do anything with their big confrontation.
Well, yeah, I mean
Like
it was less than 10 minutes. It was kind of no like it was kind of uninteresting.
right.
They didn't have any acknowledgement of the fact that these are childhood friends.
Right.
I mean, one of the things we like to talk about is what themes are these shows trying to go for. I could not tell you what Tiger Mask is trying to do because I mean it feels very much just like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Right. I was about to say its theme is trying to get Japanese children to bug their parents to go to take them to see wrestling matches. That's what it's about.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, on I was on Twitter today and I saw a promo for like a pay-per-view of Tiger Mask versus Tiger the Dark in person, right? So
Right.
they're just getting these guys to dress up as the characters from the show now. And I guess they've had other matches, like they had a real match of a guy dressed up as Tiger Mask fighting Red Death Mask, you know?
Right.
So yeah, the extent to which this is promotional advertising is a factor that has only enhanced my disinterest.
Right. And again, like if there was like any animation to these fights, I mean, there's a little, but they shoot it in such a standard, like there's no like exaggeration of their movements or
Hmm.
like any sort of like interesting dynamic camera angles that they take with this. It's all filmed in just the most. A lot of times it feels like it's a B movie that was like filmed in somebody's backyard, like if but animated,
Yeah,
like, and it's just I wanted this to be good. I wanted this to be fun,
I
but
know.
uh, anyway, you want to talk about something else that we wanted to be fun?
Well, I wanted Long Riders to be fun because despite what everyone else said, I stood by the first episode. Um, and yet, it quickly went astray. It was very clear from the first few episodes on that it was working with perhaps a negative budget. You know,
Right.
it had no storytelling capability, no consistency of characters, no narrative aim, no interest in cycling. Uh, it treated its characters mostly as one note um, stereotypes who just kept making the same joke over and over. And it was also randomly and very cynically pervy.
Just at random moments almost. Like it
Exactly.
I didn't even think it was that pervy even until like the last couple of episodes of this season. Really, it wasn't until they went to the bathhouse that it started to get a little bit more
Well,
creepy because
that
that
whole episode, the
yeah.
eighth episode or the ninth
Well,
episode.
okay, that's not fair because they did. I forgot that they did have Hinako dressed up in the bunny outfit.
Oh yeah, and they had the whole like maid cafe thing,
Yeah.
the random maid cafe episode where there's not a bicycle to be seen.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so it became clear to us this show had no interest in cycling, but it wanted to use that just as a way to put these cute little archetype girls into different situations to sell merch. And so it was a frustrating experience because I thought, the first episode I thought did a decent job of showing someone discovering the joy of doing something new for the first time. And I'm like, oh, okay, well that's fine. That's a good place to start. But it didn't really get beyond that, and it treated its main character as such an idiot that
Yeah.
she had to be told that there was more than one kind of bike, even though she'd ridden multiple times with other people using other bikes, but never wondered why her bike looked different or what advantages it might have in climbing a mountain not using a child's toy. Um, and she's like, wait, what? Gloves exist? Wait, what? Glasses exist?
I really love how the series justifies uh, it, like, because there's this whole issue that she has with money, and I thought that's where a lot of the conflict was going to come from. Was okay, so she really wants to get involved in this hobby, and but she's got to figure out some way to make money. We're going to have this balance of her trying to make a living or like trying to like be able to support her passion while also have like a personal life or something like that. And as soon as she has that job, there's like nothing.
Well, yeah, also they
It's
never
it's
bring up.
never money is
Yeah.
never an issue again.
Yeah, and they never bring up the job again. Like, she's
Right.
always free to go cycling, she's always free to hang out with her friends, but now she just has money, and it's not an
Right.
issue. I mean, I don't want to dwell on this show because it's so bad. But unfortunately, we have to because hilariously, it wasn't actually supposed to continue into the winter because it is only a 12 episode show. But on two separate occasions, it was unable to complete an episode on time, so they had to delay until the next week, meaning that they only completed 10 episodes in their 12 episode or their 12-week slot. So
Yeah.
the channel that they were airing on basically said, "Hey, we don't have any time for you to air your last two episodes until February." So in Japan, in February, they're going to do like an afternoon marathon of all the episodes and then have the two new episodes at the end or something like that. So we won't actually finish this show until they air the last two episodes in February, and then we'll do our series review. So unfortunately, we have to keep thinking about it a little bit longer, but luckily not every week.
Yeah.
All right. I want to move on if that's all right with you, Matt.
By all means.
Okay, so I wanted to ask a couple questions about the fall season before we move on to winter.
Of course.
The first being, so we went over 9 shows week to week all season, and we watched them week to week all season. And
Right.
do you think if we hadn't been doing this podcast, you would have kept up with any of these shows on your own?
Obviously, I would have done Haikyuu because I was super hyped for it, and it did not fail me.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you're in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would have watched Yuri on Ice at first because my initial impression of that was that it was going to be like free, and it's like, okay, this isn't something I'm probably going to be that included in.
Yeah.
Like, let the fangirls have their fun, and I'll stay out of it. But I think as the series would have gone on, if I might have checked it out a little
Yeah.
after the fact.
Yeah, the hype would have gotten impossible to ignore.
Right, and especially it's like, okay, well, it's a sports series. Okay, I may as well check it out.
Yeah.
All Out, I probably would have started, and I probably would have dropped it after the second episode, to be honest. And I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad. If nothing else, I'm glad we have this podcast because it got me to keep watching All Out.
Yeah.
March Comes In Like a Lion, I think I might have watched anyway, just because I have a side job writing articles for an anime website.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably would have kept watching March Comes In Like a Lion just because it looked like it was going to be a decent character drama, and that, I want to watch something that actually looks good or does something interesting. Long Riders, no, I would have never even heard of this series until you brought it up to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Tiger Mask, same deal, I think, as All Out. I think I would have been really excited to watch maybe the first episode or so.
Yeah.
And then I probably would have just dropped it. And, Scorching Ping Pong Girls? No, I would have never touched that.
No, never.
Keijo, I'll admit I probably would have watched it, though I don't think if it was for the show, I would have kept up with it.
Okay.
Just because, again, I do like my guilty pleasure stuff, but sure. I don't think Keijo had really anything all that interesting to kind of maintain.
All right, and what about the big one? Days.
Oh, Days! I think you would have kept me watching the show regardless.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that, for me, my answers are pretty similar. I know that I would have watched Haikyuu, and I know I would have watched Days, because even when we weren't doing this show over the summer, I was watching Days.
Right.
Because it's just so special to rag on. It is something.
It is.
But beyond that, I think I would have been in the same boat. I don't know what I would have done with Yuri on Ice. I probably would have checked it out, but I don't know if I would have actually continued it when I started getting those multiple episodes in a row that are just figure skating. I don't know. That didn't super hook me.
Right.
So I'm not sure whether the hype would have kept me in it or not. But I am glad I stuck with it because it was interesting. It was fun to discuss every week. There was actually a lot of meat to it. But on my own, I don't know. I don't think I would have kept up with March Comes In Like a Lion because I think I would have liked the first episode and then I would have felt like it didn't know where it was going somewhere in the first 4 and I would have dropped it. All Out, I think I would have kept up with, honestly, regardless, because I kept up with Days. So I like sort of traditional sports series, even if they aren't any good.
You know what? That's a fair point because I think you would have talked me into it.
Yeah.
Because if you were going to keep watching it, you probably would have eventually informed me, no, Matt, seriously, it gets good.
Yeah. Beyond that, I don't think I would have watched any of the rest of them. I wouldn't have watched Tiger Mask. Lord knows I wouldn't have watched Long Riders.
Right. Would we have even heard of Long Riders if we were not specifically
No,
looking for sports series? That's what I want to know.
no, no way. Especially because it was exclusive to Daisuke and basically unwatchable. Um, yeah, so I think that's where I'm at. But I am glad I watched what I did. I think it's been rewarding. And then beyond these 9 shows, have you managed to be watching any other anime in the
the
last few
only
months?
the in the last like this season, no. The only other thing I watched this season was JoJo. And
Okay.
that was because I was following it already, and Lord knows I was going to finish it, and I'm glad I did because uh, the third half, the third was the best. I
Okay.
would say. I don't want to get too much into it. I don't want to get into too spoilery, but if you haven't watched JoJo, it's a very hit and miss show. The best parts are 2 and 4. That's all I'll say for it.
So, just as someone who hasn't watched JoJo, if I was interested, could I jump in and watch Diamond is Unbreakable without
I
context?
absolutely think you could. I
Okay.
like. I think I might have to explain to you who 1 or 2 of the characters are, but I mean the extent of it would be he was the main character from that arc, or he was the or from this part, and that character was in this arc, and that's about the extent of which I would have to do it. Honestly, I think the characters that return from other arcs. Well, okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. I think Jotaro in Part 4 is a much more likable and interesting character than he was in Part 3.
Okay.
But I mean, beyond
And
that,
here's the important question: how much of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is on Crunchyroll?
all of it.
Oh, even the original?
Yeah, the original, all 4 parts that have been released thus far are on Crunchyroll. So,
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was just Diamond is Unbreakable.
nope.
Um,
The advertising is for it. So what have you been watching?
yeah, I have been keeping up with really just 2 other anime this season. I watched Girlish Number, which,
Oh,
weird title but good show. It's about it's a semi-cynical look at Japanese voice actresses and sort of the industry that around creating bad anime. Um,
right,
and it focuses on this one series that's an uh, well, it's like a light novel that they adapt really crudely, and it's basically a money grab that's not done with any budget, which is funny for me to watch too because it explains some things, about some of the shows we've been watching. Um,
right.
like I can see overtones of Scorching Ping Pong Girls and Long Riders when I watch this show.
Interesting.
So and that's well done and that was fun week to week. And I've also been watching um, the Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans season 2 because I just can't help myself. I watch the new Gundams pretty much when like I haven't seen every Gundam. I like the traditional Gundam stories though a lot.
Right.
I've watched most of the Universal Century Gundams except for Double Zeta. Um, and I've watched several of the side stories, and I really like Iron Blooded Orphans. It's really like it leans heavily on the political maneuvering
Right.
side of Gundam, which, as we've discussed recently, is something that I enjoy.
Right.
Part of the reason that I liked Rogue One more than you did.
Right.
And then
Um.
beyond that, I only watched one American show, which was a show called Pitch, which was on Fox about baseball because I watch a lot of baseball. And so while we were doing this, part of the challenge in the month of October doing this podcast was that it was also the World Series, and I'm a lifelong Chicago Cubs fan, so I was very busy watching baseball in addition to all
Oh,
these sports anime.
yeah.
um,
Actually, that caused some delays in some episodes, if I recall correctly, because you were like, "I can't record tonight, man. I have to watch the Cubs."
yeah, exactly. I mean, priorities, but
Right.
we won't have to
Uh,
worry about that again until April.
Yes. Real quick, I also wanted to bring up, I forgot to mention, I am also trying to catch up on Kuroko's basketball so we can discuss the movie when that comes out.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll release the movie on Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll.
Comes out in March. We'll see if it actually gets released around then. With theatrical releases in Japan, it's not usually an immediate turnaround, but who knows? We can only hope. Right, so moving on to the winter, we do have two new shows that we're going to be reviewing. At least we think we only have two. I mean, we tried to do our research the best we could on which shows are going to be coming out in the winter. If we missed any, I'm sure we'll get some help in identifying those. But right now, we're under the impression that there's only two sports series that are going to be airing, and the first one is Yowamushi Pedal New Generation, also known as the third season of Yawapeda. Um,
Yeah.
so this is going to be premiering on Monday, January 9th. And the premise is it's essentially just a direct continuation from season two. The three seniors have graduated from the Sahoku Cycling Club, and so they're going to try to rebuild this show. And excuse me, they're trying to rebuild the team. The show hopefully doesn't need to be rebuilt. Um, and compete again in the Inter High and see if they can win for a second year in a row. So they're the main three freshmen will be returning in addition to the two second years who didn't make the team initially. And then there's a mystery student who joins the team and creates, some much needed drama for Sahoku. And there's going to be new rival schools. I don't know. I mean, it seems kind of by the numbers. Um, I anticipate that it'll be fun. It'll be a solid performance week to week. Yawapeda was one of the shows that got me back into sports anime when it first
Yeah.
aired. I think it's a well done show that it's really it executes all the things it needs to execute well. At the same time, it's not as specifically memorable to me as a show like
Yeah.
Haikyuu has been. I don't know what was your experience watching in
You
that.
see, it's interesting because I wasn't sure what your experience was because I watched the show after the fact, but interestingly enough, I had the same experience for you as you, which is I kind of got back into the sports series based off of your recommendation for of it,
Yeah.
and I often have to remind myself after the fact that I liked it because it's not bad in any way whatsoever. It's just I've watched so many better ones since it came out that it's kind of fallen by the wayside. I kind of tend to forget that it's a decent show.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my worry for. And this is the other big concern I have is that the first series really ended in a good place. You know, its main characters had achieved their big goal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they won the big tournament, and now we're just trying
Just
to
keep it going.
yeah, just keep it going, and that's kind of my major concern. And it's already been kind of the author kind of showed he wasn't great at trying to kind of rebuild its old cast because one of the best characters from the original series, I think we both can agree on this, is Mito Suji.
Mm-hmm.
As kind of he's kind of the standout character of the series as this weirdly slimy evil cyclist who just wants to dominate everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but when he's beaten, the series kind of keeps trying to bring him back as if he's still kind of a threat, and he doesn't really feel like much of one anymore. The other big concern I have is that the series does not make a great case for cycling actually being an interesting sport.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I mean that.
and I don't mean like I'm sure there's a lot of athleticism and there's a lot of technique to cycling. The problem is, as a viewer, there's not a whole lot you can do with establishing tension
Right.
because a lot of what the original series did was have characters impossibly behind and then just catch up due to sheer effort.
Right.
And I don't know how believable that is. So like the whole issue with trying to portray a race as a serious serious dramatic tension is that there can only be one person ahead at a time
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise somebody's not ahead. Then that's not possible in a race. Somebody has to be first.
Yeah.
And it's not terribly interesting to constantly see characters behind and then just catch back up. And then because a lot of the tension comes down to a character falling disastrously behind, catching up miraculously at the end, and then there's a big pull for then there's just this constant back and forth, like, oh, who's gonna make it first? Who's gonna make it first?
Yeah.
And it's not particularly exciting to watch.
Yeah, and yet I always looked forward to it. I
Right,
mean,
and it's
when
like,
it was coming out week to week and I was watching it, I was always excited to see the new episode. Sometimes it felt like nothing happened. There were whole episodes where they went like 300 meters,
yeah,
because they spent the whole time reminiscing.
yeah,
And the sheer the whole second season, Grand Road, covers like the second 2/3 of one race.
yeah,
So it had some of the same challenges that Haikyuu had this season, where it was this very discrete period of time and trying to stretch it out. And I didn't execute quite as well as Haikyuu did. It was also a lot longer than Haikyuu was. Um,
right.
so that was the challenge. But I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the characters in a non-race environment. I'm looking forward to seeing them build up a new team. Um, Overall, like I think this will be one of the strong shows.
Right. And
Even
I
even
want it
if
to be.
yeah, even if it's not anything that blows our minds, I think it will be solid to above average week to week,
Yeah.
which is really all
Yeah.
we could ask for.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair. I don't think it's, weirdly enough, as a battle series, All Out is kind of the new hotness, and it's kind of difficult for me to get excited over a new season of Yawapita.
Mm-hmm.
And
What it's the same reason that even though Haikyuu was probably the best executed sports show this season,
right,
one of the best executed shows period this season, it didn't get the hype that the first season of Haikyuu got because they were like, oh, it's Haikyuu again.
right,
It's hard to get that same momentum going for it.
right. One of the things I am kind of looking forward to with Yowamushi Pedal this season is that it's a good chance to kind of reboot it because now we have a new team, we have a new dynamic. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the stronger, I think Yawapita is pretty good at establishing its character dynamics and kind of, it's good at character building. And another big concern I have with it though is that it's going to try and fall into the whole it's going to try and basically just set up the main rival school again as being the big rival, and then
Mm-hmm.
try and maybe awkwardly try to fit in Mito Suji again, because the series was never really able to establish decent villains behind. Is it Hokane School? Is that the
Yeah.
school, the main rival school, like
Yeah.
Hokane and Mito Suji?
Yeah. Midosuji is hopefully we'll see what he's going to make an appearance. We'll see what
Right,
kind of
but I don't.
appearance.
I don't want to see him again as a major villain.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully he becomes a coach or something super outside his personality. That would be funny.
Yeah.
And then the next show we have was Minami Kamakura High School Girls Cycling Club, which yes, that's the entire name of the show.
Yep.
So we'll have to figure out, much like Yowamushi Pedal shortened itself to Yawapeda, we'll see what the show tries to do to shorten its name, because I don't think I'm gonna say Minami Kamakura High School Girls Cycling Club the show every
Right.
the
We're probably just
animation.
gonna refer to it as Minami.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll worry about that when we get to it. But so this one premieres on Friday, January the 6th, so just here in a few days. So most likely we will have two episodes to go over for our first week of the season. Um, it focuses on a girl named Hiromi who has transferred to a new school, and she begins her first day at her new high school by bicycling to school, but she hasn't used a bicycle in a really long time, and so she, some of her classmates notice this, and she meets other girls at her school who do have experience cycling, who are in the cycling club, and they ask her if she wants to join somehow, and then she ends up competing with them on the cycling team. Um, so we watched the preview video before we recorded this.
Yep.
And what were your thoughts on that, Matt?
We have long riders again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my major concern here, is that this is just long riders again. And I don't know if I can put up with yet another girls cycling where they're just girls having fun riding bikes.
Well, yeah, and like you said, we're just lucky that we didn't actually sit through Bakuan yet.
Right.
Because that's the premise of that, effectively. So, I don't know. The animation did not look like it was anything special either. Um, we'll see. My perhaps vain hope is that they will treat this a little more competitively than Long Riders did,
Yeah.
because Long Riders had no interest in being good at cycling, really. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just about hanging out with your friends. Hopefully, there will be at least some competitive drive. There will be some rival characters, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up too high. I hope to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you there. I want it to. I would like to. I want a goal. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
want. I want some, and I don't mean like, oh, I want to ride a flesh like Long Riders desperately likes to talk about as being a goal.
Yeah.
I want it. I want there to actually be like a character motivation. I'd like to actually see some form of drama.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even mind if there's no. I'm with you in wanting competition, but just on the basis that that would at least add some sort of active role for the characters to fulfill.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they can do something interesting with like what you were talking about with Long Riders when it was first starting, where this can maybe be an interesting show about the development of a passion. But I don't know. That trailer did not give me much confidence that it would be able to do that. Um, it has we kind of talked about this as we were watching it too. It has a weird art style for what it's doing,
Mm-hmm.
because at the very least, Long Riders kind of understood that it was a gentle show, and so it had a lot of the characters had a very soft look to them. Like they had very soft line work, and very soft colors. This one looks a lot harsher in tone, but still has a lot more has harder lines and more brighter colors. So it kind of looks like it's a sports battle series, but still with that Long Riders focus. I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I don't want to be too negative on it just
Yeah.
immediately,
I,
but
I agree. I'm gonna try and go in with an open mind in the first episode, but the preview video didn't do itself any
it
favors.
it did not instill any confidence.
No. All right, and so then the last show we're gonna do is a show we talked about 3 months ago, which is Teekyuu. But for real this time, we're gonna do it
Yeah.
because we kept saying that we were gonna find a way to do TQ. Either we weren't gonna do it week to week, but we were gonna do a series like a series review, but then we didn't because we had to do 5 different series reviews around Christmas,
Yeah.
and we just didn't have time to catch up on it. So we think we found a more sustainable way to actually keep up with this show, which is that. So if you don't know, TQ is a gag comedy centered around a soft tennis club, and each episode is like 2 minutes long. And so there's 10 episodes in a season, so meaning each season is about 20 minutes long in total. So what we're going to do is we're just going to watch one season at a time
Yeah.
per week. So it'll be as if we're watching a single episode, but it'll be a full season of TQ. There's 9 seasons of TQ, so we'll watch all of those. Um, and then there's a couple spin-offs. So once we get to that point, we'll try and watch the spin-offs too, and then at the end of the season, we'll do a review of the whole series and the
Right.
spin-offs. But this is we're putting our foot down. We're actually gonna watch this show this time.
We're not
We,
going to keep putting it off until the very end. We're actually going to finish this stupid thing.
yeah, and I think this is a better way to do it rather than last time where we were like, oh, we'll just watch it all in December because what
We
could
got a
possibly come up?
a lighter season this year, so or this season, so it's a good time to try and catch up on it.
Yeah, I agree. So hopefully that'll be fun. All right, so pretty much takes us through what we're doing this winter. We have those 4 continuing shows, if you want to count Long Riders, and then we're doing these 3 new shows: Yowamushi, Minami Kamakura High School Girls Cycling Club, and Teekyuu.
Yep.
And then beyond that, so we'll next week we'll be releasing our review app. And if you have stuck around to the end of the episode, I'm going to reward you with a little preview. It's Prince of Stride. That's the show. We're gonna watch.
That's the show we're doing. Okay, big surprise there.
Exactly. I know the fans were demanding answers.
There were only 2 we missed out on. It was a choice between Prince of Stride and Bakuon, and we decided we didn't need another girls cycling series to watch.
Exactly. So we're gonna do Prince of Stride, and we'll be out with that episode next week. And then the week after that, we will begin our weekly coverage of all of these shows. It's been a great season. Thank you for joining us on the journey so far. We hope that you stick with us in this new season. We have a lot of fun, and we'd love to hear from you. I think that's all we've got, Matt. Do you have any final thoughts on this season or what we have moving ahead?
I'm looking forward to it at the very least. I'm at least looking forward to seeing how March comes in like a lion and all out turn out, and I'm pretty excited. I was kind of being a little negative. I am interested in seeing Yowamushi come back.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and I really do appreciate everybody who's been watching. It's exceeded our expectations. It's really exceeded our expectations for everything we were expecting. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we thought if we could have 5 or 10 people listening to each episode, that would be more than we could have asked for or expected.
Right.
And it has exceeded that by a decent margin, and that's been a very pleasant surprise. If you enjoy it, we appreciate it. Feel free to pass it on to other people who enjoy sports anime, or just keep us as your dirty little secret. Either way is fine with us, as long as you review us on iTunes. All right, I think that's all I've got, Matt. Would you do me a favor and hit the credits?
Oh, by all means.
Our logo design is by James Ratcliffe. The theme music is Fly High by Burnout Syndromes, covered and performed by Luke Bartka. You can follow KoshienCast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and our email is koshienCast@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll be back next week with the best and worst from the world of sports anime, and until then, keep training.